Hello and welcome to my channel and another Monster Hunter Wilds video. Today we're going to be going over the Charge Blade and all of its components. We're going to start with some basic stuff, kind of work our way up towards the more advanced stuff, and hopefully you'll be able to know the Charge Blade a little bit better by the time we're done. So basic combos if you have your sword out. I am on a PlayStation controller, so all the attacks are going to be based on that. If you're able to translate it to whatever system you have. So your basic attack will be triangle 3 times, do an up down slash with a round slash to end it. You can do this pretty much infinitely. It'll slightly move you forward, so be careful with positioning. If you hit triangle and circle, and from a standing position, it does a lunging forward slash. You can also hit triangle circle after any one of the triangle combos to perform a shield thrust. The circle attack is a charged attack, and you have to hold it down until it flashes and release. As soon as it turns red, release. This is actually one of the best ways to charge the files, which is what the Charge Blade is all about. The Charge Blade is all about building files and expending them in your axe modes. The Charge Blade has 2 modes. There is the Sword and Shield mode, which is here. You can also guard with it. And it also has an axe mode. There's a couple of different ways you can actually get into axe mode. If you guard and press triangle, that's going to be your most basic form. The other way is if you have your weapon completely sheathed and hit R2 or the right trigger on Xbox, it'll bring out the axe directly. Now the attacks with the axe are very simple. The triangle combo will simply just do an upswing and a downswing over and over and over again. The circle attack will do horizontal. Well, that's going to be your element discharge. That's going to be probably the blunt of your damage and is way more effective once you have files and your shield charged, and especially extremely effective once you have power axe activated, as your axe can turn into a chainsaw and do multiple hits. If you do your circle combo multiple times, up to 4 times, what you'll do is you'll first do the elemental discharge, 1 and 2, hit it again for an amped element discharge, and once more for a follow-up. Each one of the element discharge and the follow-up will each consume a file. If you have Power Axe active, it only consumes half a file, which I will go over later. Another way that you can go into the amped element discharge right away, if you have your axe out, you can just press triangle circle and you'll instantly go into it. Again, you can follow that up. Alright, let's talk about guarding in Sword and Shield mode. So guarding in Sword and Shield mode has a couple of different functions. Obviously, guard. Take a little bit of damage, knocks you back, but it prevents you from flying back. There are actually a couple of different ways to guard. The more efficient way to do this is called a perfect guard. So if you manage to guard at exactly the right time whenever the attack comes, you'll get what's called a perfect guard. There it is. You'll see the screen flash, and it gives you a perfect guard. Okay, we'll come back to that. And as you can see over on the left-hand side, it's actually building a file charge as you get the perfect charge. So this is a way to build the files aside from just attacking. All right. So the main point of a Charge Blade is the files that you now see glowing yellow, that as you attack, they will increase. They will glow yellow and then glow red. If they're glowing yellow, they will charge 3 of your files. If they're red, they will charge 5. Hi, Future Dreams here. I forgot to mention that if you have the Load Shells level 2 ability, as you can see, the description says that Charge Blade charges 5 files on yellow gauge. This is huge, because just as it describes, with a yellow charge, it'll actually charge all 5 rather than 3 at a time. Not only does it cause the yellow to charge 3 files, but if you have red, it'll cause them to overcharge. As you see up on top, it has those little spikes on it. This actually increases your file damage through axe mode. How to charge these? Simply block and then press circle, and your files will charge. On the Xbox controller, that would be right trigger plus B. So shield, charge. Okay? Now, once you're in this mode for the axe, okay, and now you hit circle to do the element discharge. See, each one of those is using a file charge. Do the amped element discharge and the follow-up. Every single one of those uses a charge. So you can burn through your files very, very fast. So you got to be really careful with that. Okay, so let's build the files back up. Now the fastest way to build these files is actually through that circle charged attack. So if we do this, followed up with a shield thrust, and one more time, your files should be fully red. Now, one other thing to do with your files are charged is charging your shield. Charging your shield does a couple of things. It not only increases your actual attacks while in axe mode, but it also allows you to perform a super amped element discharge, and it also gives you guard up. So whenever you're taking attacks, it gives you guard up, so that way you can take stronger attacks, and it'll actually reduce the amount of stamina usage whenever that happens. And there's a couple of ways to charge the shield. One of the most common ways, especially from previous games, is if you do your amped element discharge and hit R2 or the right trigger as the animation happens, you'll do an elemental round slash. Doing this, as you see, will put the files into the shield. The shield will last 30 seconds per file. Okay? So now that we have the shield charged, there's a couple of different things that we can do. One, let's go ahead and build our files back up. So circle, triangle, circle, circle, hold. There we go. Files are back up. The other way to charge the shield is if you block and go to charge the files and hold down the circle or B, you'll automatically do an elemental boost for your shield, and the files will instantly go into the shield. So now, what we can do with the shield being charged is we can actually charge the sword itself. If we do the same motion as charging the files, but at the same time hold down triangle or Y, as you can see, you'll put the sword into the shield and it'll charge, and now the sword itself is glowing. What happens with this is every single time that you attack, now it does an extra burst of file damage with every single attack that you do in sword mode. So that's a nice way to get some extra file damage if you're needing to attack the monster in sword and shield mode. It's not that prevalent anymore, as most of the damage is going to be coming from Savage Axe, and you're going to be spending the majority of time within Savage Axe. So charging the sword is almost pointless. But now that we do have the shield charged, what we can do is if we bring out the axe, now I was talking about the super amped elemental discharge. There's 3 ways to actually interact and cause the super amped elemental discharge. There used to be a direct path that if you had your shield charged and you press triangle circle, it would instantly go into a super amped elemental discharge. Now you have to start from the regular amped elemental discharge. You can then do a follow-up and then the super amped elemental discharge, or you can go straight from the amped into a super amped elemental discharge, and as you can see, it consumes all the files and sends out a blast in the direction. It is a great way to KO the monster and deal some very quick bursts of damage. One of the other ways to activate the super amped elemental discharge is actually just from blocking. You can do a regular block straight into triangle circle, and that will give you the super amped elemental discharge. So any sort of block that you do, as long as you have your shield charged, will allow you to do the super amped elemental discharge by pressing triangle circle if you have files charged. Okay, next up we're going to talk about Power Axe. Power Axe is what activates your Savage Axe and allows your axe attacks to turn into a chainsaw. And if you hold down your attack button at the same time as whenever the weapon collides with the monster, you'll do extra ticks of damage. Now there's 4 total ways to activate Power Axe. The most common way and the easiest way is going to be wounds. If you use your focus strike on a wound, it will activate the Power Axe. One of the other ways is if you get a perfect guard. A perfect guard, as I said, is whenever you block at exactly the time a monster attacks, and then you hit triangle, and you'll perform a Savage Axe Slash, and that'll activate Power Axe. Another way to activate Power Axe is through a mount finisher. Or a Power Clash. Once you have Power Axe activated with the Savage Axe Slash, this is where the majority of your damage is going to come from, and you're going to see how beneficial it actually is. With Power Axe active, if I just do a regular elemental discharge, as you notice, it's not consuming any of the files. So this is where you really want to spend your time, because it's going to be doing a lot of extra damage. But if I were to hold down circle, as you can see, it kind of sticks in the training dummy for a second and does a lot of extra hits. Now, if we were to continue this and go into the amped elemental discharge, even using a follow-up, each one of those only consumed half of a file. So before, where that combo would consume 4, it only consumed 1 now. So if you want to stay in Power Axe longer, your basic combo is just going to be Elemental Discharge 1 and 2. If you hold down your triangle or Y, you're going to do an upwards or a downward slash. And as long as you hold it, it'll continue to do the chainsaw. So this is going to be a lot of your damage. If the monster is down, or if you have a large opening, that's whenever you want to do the amped elemental discharge with the follow-up combination, because that's going to be your big damage numbers. So there's your amped elemental discharge. Continue with the follow-up. Those are your big numbers. And then we're just going to keep going with holding down circle. The Power Axe ran out. But that's going to be your basic combos. So, when it comes to Charge Blade, it's a very basic and simple concept. Building files, charging your shield, building files again, activating Power Axe, and wailing on the monster in chainsaw mode. So yes, the Charge Blade may seem very complicated, but it's a very simple system of building energy, storing the energy, building it again, and expending it. Hopefully, you understand the Charge Blade a little bit better, and happy hunting.